Dream of the Red Chamber, Chapter 79.
We are taking you into a profoundly unsettling, just beautifully constructed.
Chapter 79 of the classic Chinese novel Dream of the Red Chamber.
And for those of you joining us, our mission today is to really zero in on a pivotal transitional moment in this massive text.
It's a huge turning point.
Because the protagonist, Bao Yu, he lives in this incredibly sheltered, poetic sanctuary, right?
Yeah.
The Grandview Garden.
Yeah, it's basically a paradise.
But in the span of just one single day, that sanctuary begins to violently crack open.
It really does. It is a remarkable structural shift in the narrative.
Bao Yu is in a state of deep mourning. He has just finished offering a sacrifice and writing an elegy for his recently deceased maid, Qingwen.
Right, he's devastated.
He really is. He's out there in the shadows, reciting this sorrowful poetry, and suddenly he gets startled. Out of the darkness steps Lin Daiyu.
His cousin.
His cousin, yes.
Yeah.
But more importantly, she is essentially his soulmate and his intellectual equal.
Oh, completely.
She has been listening to him recite, and she steps out to give him editorial notes on his poetry.
Which is just so perfectly them. It highlights the unique nature of their relationship. I mean, they communicate their deepest feelings through literary critique.
Yeah, that's their love language.
Exactly. So Daiyu praises the elegy, but she hones in on a specific flaw. She points out a line where Bao wrote about a red silk tent.
Oh.
And she tells him that phrase is just a cliche. It's a stock image from older poetry. So she suggests tweaking it to reflect the actual physical reality of the room they are in right now.
Oh, wow.
She says change it to beneath the matter-dyed gauze window.
Okay, so, and for those of us who aren't, 18th century textile experts, madder is a plant-based dye, right?
Yeah.
It produces a very specific, rich red color.
Precisely.
So she's telling him to look at the literal window screens they use in the garden.
Exactly. It takes the poem out of the realm of abstract historical fantasy and violently grounds it in their immediate present.
And Bao Yu is absolutely thrilled by this edit. He thinks it elevates the entire piece.
He loves it.
But then, driven by that creative high, he pushes it way too far. He suggests they change the subjects of the poem as well.
Right.
Instead of abstract figures, he wants to use the terms miss and maid to directly represent Daiyu and her living maid, Ziyuan.
And Daiyu immediately shuts that down.
Oh, instantly.
She refuses. She points out that pasting living people into a funeral dirge sounds like a literal curse on her maid's life.
But Bao Yu just cannot let the poetry go.
Yeah.
He's chasing the muse, looking for that perfect, crushing emotional resonance.
He's a poet, first and foremost.
Right. So he suggests this new fateful line to replace the old one. He says, beneath the matter-dyed gauze window, I originally had no affinity. In the yellow earth mound, why is your life so ill-fated?
It's chilling.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because reading this, I kept thinking of it like, two people collaborating in a shared Google Doc.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
You know that feeling, right? You're working on a document, watching your collaborator's little colored cursor flash across the screen. You're tweaking a sentence, swapping out a word here and there. But imagine if, suddenly, that cursor deleted a harmless phrase and typed out a highly specific, deeply personalized threat to your own life.
Just out of nowhere.
Right. Because of one innocent edit changing the window screen, the document takes this incredibly dark, horrifying turn.
It really does.
But I have to push back on Bayu's intent here, because I'm struggling to understand. Is Bayu actively trying to curse Daiyu, or is he just being a completely clueless, dramatic poet who loves a good rhyme and genuinely does not comprehend the weight of what he just said?
It's the latter. He is displaying a tragic level of naivete. He is not malicious at all. He is just so consumed by the aesthetics of tragedy that he entirely misses the reality of it. What is fascinating here, though, is Daiyu's physical and psychological reaction to that line.
Yeah, tell me about that.
The source text explicitly notes that upon hearing this prophecy, Daiyu changes color. She feels this infinite suspicion and dread wash over her. It hits her like a physical blow.
Yet she doesn't yell at him. She doesn't, break down crying in front of him.
No, she forces a smile, she nods, tells him it's a great edit, and then immediately pivots.
Shuts it down.
Right. She tells him to stop playing around and go attend to proper business.
Oh.
But to understand the mechanics of her terror, we really have to look at the invisible cage they're living in.
The society itself.
Exactly. In this society, young people of their status have absolutely zero control over their romantic destinies. Marriages are entirely transactional, arranged by elders behind closed doors. The only agency Dayu and Bayu have, the only place they possess any freedom to express their profound connection, is through the careful coding of their poetry.
That's their only safe space.
So when the person you love accidentally crafts a flawless rhyming prophecy about your doomed romance and your early death into the very medium that serves as your only refuge, it shatters her reality.
The poetry has effectively turned against them.
Precisely.
And her reaction, telling him to go do proper business, is such a harsh transition. It literally yanks Bayu out of this beautiful, sorrowful, poetic sanctuary and shoves him directly into the cold, calculating machinery of the patriarchal society operating right outside their garden walls.
A wake-up call.
Which brings us face to face with the reality Dayu is so terrified of, embodied by the fate of Baoyu's cousin, Yingchun.
Yes. The proper business Dayu refers to is the news that Baoyu's cousin, Yingchun, has been formally engaged. And because of this contract, she will soon be forced to leave the garden entirely.
And the details of this engagement are chilling when you read them. Yingchun's father, Jie, has engaged her to a man named Sun Xiaozu. Let's look at Sun's profile from the text because it reads less like a matchmaking profile and more like a threat assessment.
That is so true.
He is from Datong. He has a military background. He is under 30, physically imposing, highly adaptable in social situations, immensely wealthy, and he is currently awaiting a lucrative promotion at the Ministry of War.
We also have to layer in the crucial history between these two families to understand the power dynamics at play here.
Right, because it's not a new relationship.
Exactly. The text notes that the Sun family ancestors were essentially disciples of the Jia family. Historically, the Suns relied entirely on the Jia family's power and influence to solve their political and financial problems.
So they used to be beneath them.
They were the subordinates asking for favors.
I kept reading this section and thinking, we need to stop imagining this as a romance or a wedding. We need to look at this as a hostile corporate merger.
Oh, 100%.
Think about a legacy company, the Jia family, that is bleeding cash and losing market share. The CEO, the father, Jie Shi, looks at the landscape and sees this aggressive emerging startup in Sun Xiaozu. Sun has capital, he has military backing, he is on the rise, and Jie decides he needs to align with him to save his own status. So what does he do? He liquidates an asset. He sells off his own daughter to secure the merger.
It's purely transactional.
And Bayu's reaction to this is so deeply empathetic because he sees the collateral damage. He doesn't just mourn for his cousin, he mourns for the maids too.
Right.
He says 5 more pure people are gone from the world, meaning Yingchun, and the 4 maids who are required to go with her to this brute's house.
Because the maids aren't even seen as people by the elders.
No, they are just bundled IP like the office furniture that comes with the acquisition.
Exactly.
Bayu goes to Yingchun's empty rooms, looks around, and writes this incredibly desolate poem about empty chessboards and cold autumn winds.
Because that poem is his only mechanism for processing his total helplessness. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the family's reaction to this merger highlights a massive socioeconomic shift.
How so?
Well, the Jias are an old money, highly cultured literary family, but they are losing ground to these aggressive, new money military climbers.
Right, the new guard.
Jia Shi, the father making the deal, only sees the wealth, but Uncle Jia Xing strongly objects. He points out that the sons are uncultured social climbers. Jia Zheng's anxiety is really the anxiety of an obsolete ruling class realizing they are being replaced.
And grandmother Jia, who is the ultimate matriarch of the family, isn't thrilled about it either, but she just waves it off.
She literally does nothing.
She cites destiny and just lets it happen.
And the author is very deliberate in framing how dangerous this is. The title of this chapter explicitly refers to the groom as a Zhongshan wolf.
A Zhongshan wolf. Okay, what is that?
It is a deeply resonant Chinese cultural metaphor. The folk tale of the Zhongshan wolf involves a scholar who saves a wolf from hunters by hiding it in his bag.
Right.
As soon as the hunters leave and the scholar lets the wolf out, the wolf immediately turns around and tries to eat the scholar.
Wow.
And the wolf argues that since the scholar is so kind, he should complete the favor by letting the starving wolf devour him.
That is a terrifying metaphor for a marriage.
It perfectly maps onto the Sun family, though. They were saved and supported by the Jias in the past, and now that Sun Xiaozu has gained power, He is going to devour the vulnerable daughter of the family that helped him.
Because Yingchun is simply the collateral damage of a system that treats women as currency.
Exactly.
She is a victim of a system driven by her father's greed and desperation.
Ew.
But what is truly haunting about this is that while Yingchun's life is being signed away as a business transaction, there is another marriage brewing right next door.
Yeah.
Only this time, it is not driven by a father's greed. It is driven by the groom's unchecked lust. And it brings a completely different but equally lethal kind of threat right into the inner circle.
Which brings us to Bayu's third and final interaction of the day.
Right.
Bayu is walking back from Yingchun's empty, lonely rooms. He is consumed by this heavy depression, and on his way, he bumps into Shangling.
Okay.
Given the somber mood hanging over the garden, you might expect them to share a moment of grief. Instead, Shangling is practically vibrating with excitement.
She is absolutely thrilled. She stops Bayu to tell him that her master, Xupan, is getting married, and she cannot wait to share the details.
Yeah.
Xupan is marrying into a family known as the Osmanthus Shi family. The text goes out of its way to paint a picture of immense, almost unfathomable commercial wealth.
Just staggering.
They own huge plantations. They literally control all the osmanthus flowers in the capital, and they hold the prestigious position of being the official suppliers for the royal palace.
The wealth is massive, but the demographic makeup of the Shia family is the invisible engine driving the psychology of this upcoming marriage.
Break that down for us.
So the father of the Shia family is dead. There are no male heirs to inherit the business. The entire household consists solely of a wealthy widow and her daughter.
Okay.
This daughter, the bride-to-be, is described as being as beautiful as a flower, and unusually for a merchant's daughter, she reads and writes.
Right, and Xupan, who is historically known throughout the novel for his terrible behavior and impulsivity, sees her, falls in lust instantly, stays at their house for days, and basically begs his mother to arrange the marriage immediately.
Typical Zupan.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Shangling, the maid, is overjoyed by this news.
Oh, it's so painful to read.
She tells Bayu she is counting down the days until the new bride arrives because she hopes this educated woman will be a poetry companion for her.
It is a moment of just agonizing irony.
I found myself wincing as I read Shangling's dialogue. It is exactly like watching a dedicated employee cheerfully and enthusiastically training the outside consultant who was specifically brought in to replace and fire them.
Yes, that is exactly it.
She is completely blind to the threat walking through the front door. But I want to ask you about Bayu's reaction here, because Bayu doesn't celebrate with her.
No, he doesn't.
He coldly tells Shangling that he is worried for her future. Shangling is deeply offended by this. She blushes, she calls him unapproachable, and she turns and storms off.
She doesn't want to hear it.
Is Bayu just projecting his own depression about Yingchun onto Shangling, or does he actually understand the political mechanics of this new bride better than Shangling does?
Oh, he absolutely understands the mechanics better than she does. Bayu possesses a chilling foresight regarding the brutal survival politics of the inner chambers.
So he knows what's coming.
Think about the Shia daughter's structural position. She is a wealthy, fatherless heiress entering a brand new, highly complex household. The chapter title text actually refers to her impending arrival as a Hadong lion.
A Hadong lion. I know that implies something fierce, but what does that term actually convey in this context?
So it is a classic Chinese idiom for a fiercely dominant, fiercely jealous wife. The metaphor implies a woman whose roar terrifies her husband and brings the entire household to its knees.
Oh, wow.
But we have to look at the why behind that behavior. A woman in her position, raised in a household with no men to protect her interests, inheriting vast wealth, she knows that she has to fiercely protect her new territory when she marries into a chaotic family like Zhu Pan's.
She has to establish dominance.
Exactly. She's not coming in to write poetry and be best friends with her husband's beautiful, young, established maid.
Right.
She is coming in to dominate the household hierarchy and ruthlessly eliminate any perceived threats to her status and security.
And Jankling's innocence, her belief that the world operates on shared hobbies and kindness, it completely blinds her to that predatory reality.
Completely.
She thinks they're going to bond over literature, while the new bride is coming in to secure a perimeter.
This profound disconnect between reality and innocence brings us to the emotional climax of this entire excerpt. Think about the visual the text leaves us with. After Zhangling storms off in a huff, Bayu is left standing alone in the garden. He is weeping. He is utterly alienated from everyone around him.
because he is the only one who sees the train coming off the tracks.
Exactly. He's the only one who sees the impending destruction of the women he cares about.
Yeah.
He sees Du Yu's terror, he sees Yingchun being fed to a wolf, he sees Jiangling welcoming a lion, and he has absolutely zero institutional power to stop any of the machinery in motion. Baiyu is in a really critical state. He's bedridden with this severe fever, he's suffering from terrible nightmares, and he is just constantly calling out for his maid, Qingwen, in his sleep.
Wait, okay, so I read this section and I kind of have to play devil's advocate for a second.
Oh, go for it.
Are we absolutely sure this illness is purely psychosomatic?
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, his immune system must be totally wrecked by the physical stress of what just happened in that household.
Yeah, for sure.
Couldn't he have just, like, caught a nasty virus while his defenses were down?
Well, I mean, it is a combination, but the text heavily emphasizes the psychosomatic origin. The physical collapse is basically the direct manifestation of his trauma and really his profound shame.
Which makes sense, given what he just went through.
Exactly. He has just witnessed the brutal raiding of the Grandview Garden. He's seen the expulsion of the maid, Siki. He's had to say this very final, painful goodbye to Yingchun as she's married off.
It's just wave after wave of loss.
It is. And most devastatingly, he is carrying this crushing guilt over the tragic fate of Qingwen. So his body is essentially keeping the score, right? It's shutting down because the emotional shock is simply too vast to process consciously.
And there's also this really fascinating underlying tension with his mother, Wang Firen. Like, the source notes she secretly regrets pushing Qingwen too hard.
Oh, absolutely.
Which was basically the catalyst for this whole tragedy. But she completely buries that regret. She doesn't apologize. She doesn't, comfort him with the truth. She just puts on this iron mask.
Which tells us everything we need to know about the mechanics of power in this household, honestly.
How so?
Well, in this strict hierarchy, for a matriarch to acknowledge fault, especially to a subordinate or a younger generation, that's compromising her structural authority.
Right, she can't show weakness.
Exactly. If she admits she was wrong, the entire illusion of her infallible judgment shatters. So to preserve the system, she just swallows her guilt, maintains the facade of the strict disciplinarian, and focuses entirely on this, mechanical physical cure for Baoyu.
And that cure is the extreme 100-day lockdown we talked about at the top of the show.
Yes, the prescription.
Yeah, so after a month of surviving the worst of the fever, the matriarchs hand down this prescription. 100 days confined to his courtyard. A strict vegan diet of boiled vegetables. No meat, no oil, no flour.
It's an extreme purification ritual, basically.
That's wild.
They are attempting to purge the illness through total restriction. I mean, if the sickness came from emotional excess and, worldly attachment, the cure in their minds is sensory and physical deprivation.
It's literally the ultimate teenage grounding.
Yeah, it really is.
But the irony here is phenomenal to me. This extreme punishment actually acts as a bizarre kind of sanctuary for him.
Oh, for sure. Because of his father.
Right. Because his father, Jie Zheng, usually puts this relentless, crushing pressure on him to study and become this perfect Confucian scholar. But since Baoyu is technically under the matriarch's medical orders to, quote-unquote, convalesce, his father cannot touch him.
It's a loophole.
A 100-day loophole. For 100 days, Baoyu is shielded in this lockdown bubble.
The confinement does become a shield. But, when you place a teenager in a 100-day sensory deprivation chamber, there are inevitable side effects.
Oh, absolutely.
You just cannot compress human energy that tightly without creating friction.
Sparks start flying. The text says that after about 40 or 50 days, he's so bored he can't take it anymore, so he starts acting completely wild and lawless with the maids in his courtyard.
He's just tearing the place apart.
Tearing it up. Inventing chaotic games, doing everything short of dismantling the architecture. He is desperately rebounding from the grief and the restriction.
Right. And while Baoyu's response to this oppressive environment is to just explode outward in chaos, others in the household react by desperately seeking stability.
Which is a natural reaction.
Yeah, because this chaotic energy ripples outward, and it deeply affects the people around him who, they don't have the luxury of a protective bubble.
Which brings us to Xinglang. So she's observing Baoyu's erratic behavior, and she makes this highly conscious decision to actively avoid him and his garden.
A very smart move on her part.
Yeah, she feels that he was perhaps too forward with her in the past, And seeing him act this unhinged makes her realize she needs a lifeboat. She really wants stability.
And because she's pulling away from Bayou's volatility, she places literally all of her hope into this unknown variable.
The new bride.
Yes, the arrival of Zhu Pan's new wife. Zhangling is essentially counting down the days. She has heard 2 specific pieces of data about this new bride. She is beautiful and she is literate.
And from those 2 data points, Zhangling extrapolates an entire savior complex. I really struggled with Zhangling's logic here, honestly. She assumes that because the bride is pretty and can read poetry, she's naturally going to be elegant, peaceful, and act as this stabilizing force in this chaotic household.
It's a huge leap.
It's a massive leap of faith. It's the textbook halo effect, right? Like seeing one positive trait, beauty or education, and automatically haloing the person with all these other moral virtues that they haven't actually earned. It just seems incredibly naive.
It is a cognitive distortion, certainly. But to understand why Zhangling makes this desperate leap of logic, we really have to look at the terrifying reality of her social standing.
Her rank in the house.
Right. Zhangling is a concubine. She is not operating in a modern social dynamic where, like, a new roommate might just be a bit annoying.
Right. It's not a bad college roommate situation.
Not at all. She lacks the protection of a bloodline. She lacks a legal marriage contract. Her entire quality of life, her physical safety, and her daily existence depend entirely on the whims of this incoming wife.
Because the new wife isn't just a family member. She is basically an absolute autocrat over the inner household.
Precisely. So Zhangling isn't just making a casual error in judgment here. This is a profound survival mechanism.
She has to believe it'll be okay.
Yeah. She's in a precarious position. She feels the chaos radiating from Bayou's courtyard, and she desperately needs this new wife to be a peaceful, stabilizing force. The alternative is simply too dangerous to even contemplate.
Unfortunately for Zhangling, the alternative is exactly what steps through the door.
Oh, completely.
The illusion of the peaceful savior shatters on literally day 1. Enter the tyrant, Xian Jingui.
Xian Jingui is such a fascinating psychological study. She is 17 years old. She possesses the beauty and the literacy Zhangling heard about, but strategically, she is a juggernaut.
She's terrifying.
She really is. The text explicitly compares her cunning to the formidable Wang Ximeng.
But their backgrounds are different, which I think explains Jingui's particular brand of domination.
Right, how she was raised.
Yeah, Jingui was raised by a widowed mother who treated her like the absolute center of the universe. She was spoiled beyond belief.
Just given everything she wanted.
Everything.
Yeah.
The source material has this incredible description of her. It says she has a flower-like appearance, but a thunder-like temper.
I love that line.
It's so good. And she treats herself like a bodhisattva, like this divine, enlightened being, while viewing everyone else as basically the dirt beneath her feet.
And that background of unchecked entitlement is just crucial here. She has never encountered a boundary she couldn't break by throwing a tantrum or just demanding her way.
You know, when I read her introduction, I immediately thought of a dictator stepping into a volatile new territory. Or like a modern-day bridezilla mixed with a ruthless corporate CEO stepping into a new company.
That is the perfect analogy.
Right. Not just a CEO firing people to cut costs, but someone who needs to test the compliance of the population immediately, just to assert dominance on day 1.
Exactly. Jingui assesses her new husband, Zhu Pan. She sees that he is arrogant, he's stubborn, and he's totally used to getting his way. And she makes a very calculated, strategic decision to, as the saying goes, strike while the iron is hot.
Just break him down immediately.
Yes, she understands the window of opportunity. During the honeymoon phase, Zhu Pan is still trying to please her, still slightly off balance.
He's vulnerable.
Right. If she tries to slowly integrate, he will establish the boundaries of their marriage. She realizes that to survive and thrive on her own terms, she must completely dismantle his authority right out of the gate. She has to plant her flag of absolute dominance before the cement of their dynamic dries.
It's so calculated.
Yeah.
Now, if I were stepping into a hostile corporate takeover, my first move would usually be to neutralize the second in command, right? Or the clearest alternative power source.
Naturally.
But in Jingui's case, she doesn't go after her husband first. She goes straight for the concubine. She takes one look at the beautiful, talented Zhangling and identifies her as a massive structural threat.
And the source uses a brilliant historical quote to describe Jingui's mindset here. It says, "How can one allow others to sleep soundly beside one's bed?"
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's actually a reference to Emperor Song Taizu justifying a military conquest.
A military conquest. So she sees this as a war.
Completely. Jingwei doesn't view Shangling with mere jealousy. She views her as a territorial incursion. This is a border war for her.
And in war, you attack the enemy's identity. This is where her tactics become like a masterwork of calculated psychological flanking.
It's so petty, but so effective.
Unbelievably petty. So Jingwe's name contains the character Gi, which means cassia or osmanthus flower. And because she views herself as this divine being, she decides her name is sacred.
Right.
She strictly forbids anyone in the entire household from saying the word Gi. She even mandates that the actual physical flower must now be called the Changji flower, after the moon goddess.
It is a breathtaking display of power. By forcing the household to change the name of a common flower, she is fundamentally controlling their vocabulary.
It is exactly like a dictator changing the national calendar.
Yes.
It has literally no practical purpose other than being a pure compliance test. If she can force you to say a ridiculous new word just to avoid punishment, she proves she owns your reality.
You're just constantly walking on eggshells.
Exactly. You're monitoring your own thoughts to ensure you don't accidentally utter the forbidden syllable.
And while she has the household actively policing their own language, she executes her primary objective, the systematic dismantling of her husband's will.
This part is so intense.
It is. She accomplishes this through a deeply insidious tactic, which is basically weaponized fragility.
Yeah, because Yupan finally tries to push back, right?
Yeah.
He tries to assert a tiny bit of authority.
He does.
But instead of fighting him head-on with aggression, Jingwei orchestrates a complete theatrical meltdown. She fakes a severe illness.
A total performance.
The text says she cries like a drunkard, she completely refuses food, and she makes herself appear entirely broken by his supposed cruelty.
And this forces a systemic response from the household. They cannot ignore a starving, hysterical bride. They must call a doctor.
Right.
And the doctor, who is no fool, enters this highly charged room. He sees the furious bride, the panicked husband, and the tense matriarchs. So, to protect himself, he basically provides Jingwei with a medical shield.
He gives her an out.
Yes, he diagnoses her by claiming her qi and blood are reversed.
The doctor reads the room perfectly. By giving her this diagnosis, he scientifically validates her victimhood. He makes her unassailable.
It works perfectly.
It really does. But the true genius of her manipulation involves the mother-in-law, Aunt Zhu. Because theoretically, a mother-in-law in this era should side with her son to maintain the bloodline's authority, right?
That would be the expectation, yes.
But Aunt Zhu actually takes Jingwe's side. She scolds her own son, calls Jingwei a phoenix egg that is lighter than a flower, and basically tells Yupan he is ruining everything.
And we really have to unpack the mechanism of why this is such a devastating structural victory for Jingwei.
Please do, because it's wild.
Well, in a Confucian household, filial piety, the absolute obedience to one's parents, is the highest law. A mother's word is legally and culturally binding.
Ah, so he can't fight back against his mom.
Exactly. By playing the ultimate fragile victim so convincingly, Jingwei turns Aunt Shu against Zupan. She doesn't just win an argument, she legally traps her husband.
So he is completely cornered.
Simply cannot defy his mother.
The person behaving terribly flips the script so completely that the actual victim Zupan ends up apologizing.
He totally caves.
He begs her forgiveness, terrified of triggering another medically validated episode. His spirit is entirely broken.
It's dark.
It is. And for you listening, think about a time you've seen someone use victimhood as a weapon. The aggressor plays the victim, rallies the authority figures to their side, and suddenly you are the one apologizing for their bad behavior. It is terrifyingly effective.
It really is. And having successfully conquered her husband and weaponized the mother-in-law, Jingwei feels invincible at this point.
She thinks she's untouchable.
Yeah, she assumes she has cracked the code of this household. So she attempts to extend her dominance to the intellectual powerhouse of the family, her sister-in-law, Baochai.
But this is where the unstoppable force meets the immovable object.
Oh, totally.
Jingwei tries to push Baochai, looking for a way to assert dominance. But Baochai completely clocks the rebellious, tyrannical intentions. Yet Baochai doesn't argue.
No, she doesn't.
She doesn't fight back at all. She uses a defense mechanism that modern psychology calls gray rocking.
It is a textbook defense against a narcissist.
Absolutely.
Baochai offers pure tact and careful, neutral words. She gives Jingwei absolutely no emotional reaction, no perceived slight to latch onto, and no opening to attack. She just becomes a smooth marble wall.
So Jingwei is desperately feeling around for a crack in the armor, like a reason to fake another illness or throw a tantrum, but Baochai gives her literally nothing.
Nothing to work with.
Right. So what does a bully do when they hit a reinforced wall? They pivot. They look for a softer target to absorb that displaced aggression.
Exactly. Jingwei turns all of that thwarted energy right back to the most vulnerable person in the room, Shangling.
Poor Shangling. Yeah.
And the final interaction we analyze today is a calculated psychological flanking maneuver. It is proxy warfare at its finest.
So Jingwei corners Shangling and begins interrogating her. She asks, "Who gave you the name Shangling?" Now, Shangling, still somewhat naive to the depths of this malice, proudly states that Bao Chai gave it to her.
She thinks it's a shield.
Yeah. She assumes that citing the respected, intelligent sister-in-law will impress Jingwei and offer her some protection.
But Jingwei is simply gathering ammunition.
Always.
She takes that information and coldly mocks the name. She tells Shangling that it is an unlettered, ignorant name.
It is such a layered, vicious insult. On the surface, she's degrading Shangling, reinforcing her absolute authority over the concubine.
Right.
But beneath the surface, she is directly attacking Bao Chai's intellect. She's sending a message like, the sister-in-law everyone reveres as a scholar. She doesn't even have the education to name a concubine properly.
It's so calculated.
She uses Zhangling's misery as a conduit to strike at Bao Chai. It proves that in Jingwei's ecosystem, there is no such thing as a neutral interaction. Every single question is a trap designed to map out your vulnerabilities.